Yo, what up everybody, Arie here, and in today's video, I actually brought in a special guest. His name is Dennis White, and he's someone you could consider an influencer marketing expert. He's generated multiple 5 figures in a single day through influencer shoutouts on YouTube and Instagram, so I figured it would be amazing to have him on the channel, answer a lot of you guys' questions, and just have a chill conversation. And to no one's surprise, that's exactly what we did. We had a great conversation where we exchanged a ton of knowledge. And before we get into the video, I do want to mention in the video we talked about an influencer script that Dennis does want to share with you guys. So if you want to get his influencer script, all you have to do is text influencer to the number below. That's Dennis's number, and he'll be able to send that influencer script to you right away. But without further ado, let's get right into the video. Yo, what up everybody, welcome back to another video. Today I got a special guest here. His name's Dennis, and we're going to be talking about some really good valuable info on influencer marketing and just a whole bunch of stuff. So first things first, Dennis, if you could just kind of introduce yourself, like your background a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for me, I dropped out of high school when I was in 11th grade. I think I was like 17. And yeah, at the time I just wanted to really focus on like entrepreneurship, and I just didn't really want to be around people who weren't in the position that I wanted to be in. So I was just like knocking doors at the time, and kind of just like evolved into like wanting to do SMMA, and then we found that our niche that worked was like e-commerce and stuff like that. And then like long story short, a lot of the clients that we had at the time, like back in like 2018, were like, you're taking influencer data and scaling it, and we were mainly just scaling it. And so a lot of the clients I had were really good at influencers. And then I had like one client who he spent like 300 on a shout out with like a personal brand, and he did like 45K in a day. And that's one kind of,
that's fucking crazy, bro.
Yeah. And it just like really got me interested because I didn't really have a real skill like in e-commerce. I was mainly just like bringing clients on, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then like the first product I scaled was like with YouTube compilation pages with like Fortnite stuff. It was like a headset.
Really?
Yeah.
That's actually super interesting. So that was like the first time that you really like scaled something, and it was with YouTube influencers and like theme pages. Yeah,
like the store between like when we started like July, like beginning of July 2018 to like December is like kind of when we stopped it. It did like, what was it, like 682K, and like about half was tracked on Facebook, so like the other half was about from influencers. And we were paying like $300 for channels that were getting like 1 million views in a day, just because the way the algorithm was back then with
that's
like item
crazy. And how long ago was that?
That was in 2018.
Wow. So would you say like those type of pages, like theme pages on YouTube, are they more saturated? Like,
I would say in a way, like at least for the Fortnite pages, the algorithm definitely went down, just because back then there was a lot of hype around it.
Yeah.
And it's really switched to like personal brands. Like,
yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Looking at the kids who are really big, say just like in the Fortnite scene, I've just heard some of the numbers, like them making like 100K in a day from like the launch of their keyboard and stuff like that. So it's just definitely moved into like personal brands and like moving to people who have like an actual voice and like a community built.
So what would you say is like a better opportunity right now? I'm just thinking like for someone just watching, like, yo, I'm trying to run some promotions, would you go with like a YouTube influencer or an Instagram influencer?
It depends where the most value in their audience is. Like if they don't really have a community built on YouTube, and if it's mainly just from Instagram and Snapchat, obviously that would be best. But just the YouTubers, from my experience, say like in the past year, they've brought in, it's just like being able to tap in with a community from someone who's already, say, making a lot of money from that. Yeah. And then you're able to pay to get tapped into the same traffic source that they're making money from. It's just overall better. And like I've seen a lot higher revenue off of like lower amount of views from YouTube, just because the community is like built really well there.
Yeah, that makes sense, bro. That's how I've kind of felt about that too. Like YouTube, I feel like you grow a much stronger community, like people get to know you better. So I think when people promote products on YouTube, it has like more meaning. Yeah. And I think we were talking about this earlier, like before we actually recorded, but you mentioned how another great thing about YouTube is like once you post that video, it's on there forever, and it's like getting views. It could keep
going up. Like there was one video that we did, it was like a $4,000 integration. In the beginning I thought it was kind of a dud, because it was like, I don't know, like 2K in sales in the first week, but then
and for 4K, damn.
But now the video just like, it went like really viral, and it's like really good views, and it did like 50, the code's like at 54K now, like, oh my, but that wasn't, it was posted at the end of June.
So it took a while to get to that point, but it still gave you like a huge return on your investment.
It's like a 13 or 16 ROAS or something.
That's insane. Like you would never see that on
sometimes
Facebook.
You just get lucky.
I guess that, that's the thing about YouTube that I think it's pretty dope, is that you got that little bit bit of RNG or whatever. Like
exactly,
there's some luck involved, and you
Yeah.
have the chance to go really viral.
And that's why, looking at trends like in the niche that we were scaling, and people were getting a lot of views doing specific like videos, and like there's a lot of people doing it and they were always consistently getting views. So when you launch a shout out, trying to make everything as good as possible before you launch it. And then we just ended up being able to get into like multiple like more viral videos like for the niche.
Yeah, that's
that
smart.
ended up doing really well.
Yeah, that makes sense too, to like, make sure everything is properly prepared. And also another thing I know that you guys do is like maximize the shout out by focusing a little bit on the back end, like running some ads potentially, like retargeting and stuff like that.
Yeah, like if an influencer shout out works, the retargeting will most likely always work.
That makes sense.
Especially like on Facebook when you're running influencers, just doing like the standard like, add a cart, initiate checkout, purchase, like add payment info, and running at $5 a day, and typically those would get like always like 4 or 5 ROAS, just because the audience is just really warmed up to the offer and stuff like that. It could even be higher than that. But like influencers, like say for drop shipping, it's really just based on, volume's key, but at the same time, like the average order value like matters. Like for more of the service part of things, like we were talking about before, it's like, there's services that are being sold for like $1,000 plus. Yeah. And then running it on like channels that kind of meet the niche criteria for it. And like from like one video that I did with like a YouTuber that has like 200, like over 200k subs, it was like $1,000 offer, like 1,000 to 1,200, and the one video did like 36k from like 11k views, just because like the audience, there's a really good conversion rate between views to people who like opted in type of thing.
Bro, yeah, like also finding those channels that have that, like maybe they don't get like millions of views or whatever, but they have that tight knit community or like that influence over those people. So like you said, even with like 11k views, you could get this like 30k plus revenue day, especially with a big offer.
Yeah, and that was like spread out through like a week. So like this stuff, I feel like influence are really based on like day to day like sales numbers. Right. When it comes to YouTube, it's like what happens in a week, 2, 3 weeks, 4 weeks.
Yeah, you got to keep tracking it, as opposed to like on Instagram, it's more of like a
it's very
quick,
immediate.
Yeah, you're like reducing that time window of sales on Instagram because it's
because like if you do a story shout out, doing everything as best you can, but once you launch it, whatever happens kind of thing.
So would you still recommend people do both? I mean, for their brands or stores, as opposed to just focusing on one or the other?
Yeah, like YouTube is just good because with YouTube, say if someone's been building a community for 2 or 3 plus years, and they're obviously, they're buying stuff, they're obviously making good money from it. Being able to move into that, and plus the revenue versus view rate, like on a big influencer that we run on like 100k plus subs, been able to typically make like in orders 1% of their subscribers.
Okay.
Type of thing.
That's
which is like
huge.
the goal. Yeah. So it's like someone has like 200k subs, being able, sometimes it's bigger, sometimes it's like a little bit lower, but Instagram stories, like if someone works on YouTube, bringing it over to Instagram stories and retargeting, like 2 days after the video goes up, doing Instagram story, retargeting those people, which is usually like a part of the deal. But if sometimes the influencers don't have an audience really built on Instagram, maybe they're just strictly YouTube. Right. So it just depends on the page, but it's just about like when you're scaling, like say if something works, that's where people get caught up, is like how to actually scale, and they kind of it's the whole saturation thing where people say they don't like want to saturate and
their audience,
audience, but the whole point is to saturate the audience.
To go through it, like milk it if you can.
Because like, and that's the way that you scale. It's just like you
doubling on what worked.
Yeah, like with the Instagram stories, I mean, I'm kind of aggressive when it comes to like the story, at least for like the drop shipping side of things, just because if something works, I would run it like twice a week with retargeting, with like remarketing of this story. So it's like they'll post the main ad, and then after the ad is up, after it goes down, or like an hour before it goes down, they'll post another story reminding their audience to get in. That will like, and typically I only pay like 20%, 20 to 30% of the actual shout out cost for that. And that will typically have like, at least from my experience, I've had like 4 or 5 ROAS on that, just because the ad spend's lower and it stays up for longer. Yeah,
that makes a ton of sense, and that's actually ideal. I also noticed, like on my own influencer research, like that I've done for my brand, is like a lot of the people that focus on YouTube, like personal brand people, for example, have higher engagement on Instagram than people who focus on Instagram only.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's like
it's weird.
It's just about community building. Like. I've seen, like with micro influencers, there's this influencer and they have like, I don't know, like 15k subs, but we've paid her 500 a video twice.
Damn.
And the code's at like 8.5. You know, and that's kind of the thing, is just like you just have to go through it and be able to identify like how much you're willing to spend, and then find the influencers who would probably match that price range.
Yeah.
And then just be able to run with it, you know?
Right. That actually brings me to like kind of another question too, that just for the drop shipping side of things, because I know obviously a lot of people, you know, are drop shipping. To apply these sorts of strategies for influencers, would you say it's best to maybe find a product that fits the influencer, or, you know, like look for influencers that would fit your product? Like, what's a good approach?
Usually it's best to have an idea of the influencer first, and then being able to bring a product to them.
Yeah.
Because like with dropshipping, reality TV stars is like something I've scaled with like pretty consistently, and it's like it's very general.
Yeah, that's pretty
like,
broad.
So there's a lot of products that could fit them. So it's more so trying to find like the right influencer and then bringing the right product to them. But you know, it's kind of a mixture between finding the right influencer and then being able to have the right product.
Right.
But you just want to move in, like if your product is like very general, just moving into like, you know, it could work with a lot of people. But if it's very niche, like kind of like what we do is like very niche. So like just looking up the certain keywords for the niche in YouTube.
Yeah.
It's very obvious who's going to make you money when it comes to doing influencers. Like the people who are just taking the algorithm every time they post, like they're just getting, you know, hundreds of thousands of views like off the bat. Those are the people who are going to make you a lot of money. And then if those people can't fit your budget, looking at the people who are smaller than that. And on YouTube, you can like go like on the filters, you can click on like, you know, the filters, and you can filter by this month, and then look at view count.
Right.
You know, and then you can like see who's getting the least views. And then those people could be good. The whole point of the strategy is to be the most known brand in the space for whatever you're selling, and being able to get everyone to know about you.
Damn, that's like such a good point, bro. Like the brand awareness aspect of it, that kind of makes your brand an authority.
Yeah.
And I feel like with YouTube too, like, you know, when somebody makes a video about your brand, like if your brand is getting looked up on Google, or maybe like even on YouTube, maybe their video would pop up as like an unboxing or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's kind of like the same thing where it's like BarkBox, I think what it's called. They have like thousands of YouTube on like tutorials and like reviews and stuff like that. And but the whole point is like to maximize out the opportunity with scaling with the biggest people in a niche to get everyone to know about you.
Right.
It's kind of like Mr. Beast with Honey. Like no one really knows a browser extension for like coupon codes, but they've ran with them multiple times, and like, you know, everyone would go to that company for that thing. You know?
Exactly. Because now they're like the authority figure for whatever. Like I don't know of any
like
other companies.
You'll make a direct, like we make direct ROI from the video within like a couple weeks to a month, depending on what the ad spend is. But it's the whole brand awareness factor of like people who are being referred, people telling their friends, people reordering.
Right.
You know?
So there's like added value aside from just the revenue, like the immediate revenue that you're making. And I think a lot of people need to start thinking more like that. And that's why I really wanted to have you on, because I knew that this would be like a really good conversation, and people don't really understand the value of brand awareness and just, you know, people telling their friends about your brand or et cetera, et cetera. So that's super dope. How about on Instagram? Like I want to ask, because I know that more and more people are starting to become like influencers, it feels like. Yeah. So would you say like it's becoming more like too saturated, or is there still like opportunity in there?
No, I mean, a lot, especially from TikTok, like a lot of the people are coming from TikTok, and they're just on TikTok. It's not like they really have like any authority over people because they're just getting a viral video. But it's like, to answer if it's saturated or not, there's a lot of products that have they've been scaled before, but then bringing them to those platforms.
True.
And scaling
So it's more about the products being saturated more so than like.
Yeah, it's like more so the traffic source not being saturated, because like there could be super saturated products on Facebook. For example, like you could never run a makeup brush on Facebook, you know, well you could, but
it's probably not going to work. It's too generic.
But if just in theory, if you went and did a makeup brush collab with Addison Rae, you know, you would do really well.
Yeah, that's true.
You know?
That's a good point.
So it's just about the traffic source for like what you go to. But saturation is a real thing. You know, like at a certain point, like for us, the way that we combat that is looking into different sub-niche categories within like there's like one umbrella category.
Right.
So say if it was like cars, and then you have like tuner cars, you have the supercar YouTubers.
True, yeah.
And it's like the same thing, so looking into like separate niches and stuff like that.
That makes sense. That's a good way to avoid saturation, like going for these sub niches or like micro influencers even.
And it just depends, like, you know, if you test something out and if it works, you can run it for quite a long time, like at least a year. especially if there's multiple, like in the niche that we're in is like kind of small. So it's like there's only a handful of actual good people who are going to like bring you thousands of customers. Right. But if you're going to more of a general thing, like say cars, there's a bunch of YouTubers who are getting consistent few 100K, million views like per video and just stuff like that,
Yeah, so would you recommend people, I mean, let's say someone's just starting fresh right now, they're like looking for a niche, but they don't want to learn how to run Facebook ads, because you mentioned that's kind of how you got started into this. Like, you didn't have a particular skill at the time for e-com, but this was your thing. Would you recommend them starting with YouTube influencers? I
think YouTube is good. It's just with dropshipping in total, it's all about your cash flow coming in, and because like this model with like scaling to like the bigger budgets,
right?
It's the brand who was working with it. They were already doing a few $100s a day in sales just organically. So when we spent the first 1K, when they spent the first 1K to do the video, they would have made it back in like a couple days. And then when we spent the 4K, they would have made it back in a few weeks, even if it didn't work. But those videos ended up working really well and then scaled up from there. But that's kind of the main thing, is like about your cash flow coming in. So if you're just starting out, when my first big shout out that I spent like $2,800 on for like a personal brand.
It's a lot. Just on one shout out.
Yeah. And I spent $2,800, and then I made sure everything was as good as possible. Like I just followed the same structure that my client was like showing me to do.
Right.
And it did like $8,600 in the first 24 hours since it was a story.
Damn.
But regardless of how the shout out went, I still had more money coming in just from outside stuff than, so if the shout out only did $200 in sales, I would have been fine in my bank account.
I see.
That's the mindset to have.
For sure. I feel like that helps. Right.
Yeah.
Like I think then the best move for someone would be like treat YouTube influencers as like a way to kickstart your brand awareness, like after you validate an idea, for example, like through, I don't know, like Instagram shout outs.
Yeah, like YouTube is good if you're especially just starting out, but it just comes back to the whole cash flow thing of making sure that, if you put money out, just realize that there's no guarantee to get it back in. So you want to guarantee that for yourself.
So you want to be like willing to lose that money if you're actually going to go
like when
for
I spent the $2,800, it was just bye-bye.
Yeah, it's like, all right, it's gone.
It's never, but, and like with that, I never even tagged the Instagram. Like I was just focused strictly on product sales,
Yeah.
And like, it just ended up working out well. And,
so that's without even like, so you could have, for example, tagged the Instagram of your brand and like gotten all this clout for the brand.
I just didn't know at the time.
Yeah.
We were just going for straight product sales.
Yeah, just like trendy products, not really focused on the brand building at the time.
And like when it comes to product research, like the product that I did that with was something that was like super saturated with American theme pages.
Yeah.
And then brought it over to French.
That's really interesting. So you went to like an emerging market, basically.
Yeah. The French reality TV stores, because they never saw the product before. No one ever promoted it.
Yeah.
And it was around the right time, and it was just something where it ended up like popping because it was already proven to work, and that's kind of like, there's no, I don't have any like cut clear like what products to run, but something that's been already proven to work, something that's like easily explained and that they can like show the benefits of it and like be able to go through the value. Like the product that I was selling was like more of an emotional based product, so like she had her like kids in the ad and like she handed it to them.
Wow.
And it was like this whole thing, and so she's able to show like what to do, and then she showed the website.
Nice.
Showed like which ones to get, how to input like the info, since it was like a customized product.
Oh, okay, that's cool. So you kind of did an ad where she like, just you told her step by step what to do.
Yeah, I do like very long. Some people only do like 3. I do like very long form.
Oh.
And like if some people complain about it, but at the end of the day, it works.
Yeah, I mean, if it works, why not? And also, then you could theoretically like ask for that content then to run.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, because like they always send it's in the contract, but they have to send it for pre-filming. After someone films something, you always have to watch it.
Yeah.
And that's something that I struggle with a little bit, was like quality control, but like that's one thing I really had to like hone down on. But like you watch the videos, but then it's in the contract where you're allowed to like use it for retargeting and like on your website purposes and stuff like that. And but it's like once something works, a big problem that you'll run into if you're dropshipping kind of doing this model is like the payment processors.
Oh yeah. That's like the biggest killer for people for sure.
Yeah, it was for me too for a little bit, just because like you start running it up and you could be at a point where you can do like multi 5-figure days, but it's just the payment processor won't allow it. Damn. So that's like a main thing, like something to look into is like if you start running this, I recommend setting up like LLCs.
Yeah.
If you get into like higher budgets, like making sure you have this really good payment processor, the biggest thing is like if you're drop shipping, you do not want to drop ship an influencer's audience at all, because yeah, it's cool for like the first, once you get the money in, but they're not going to want to rock with you.
Yeah.
If you continue to do that.
Yeah, that makes sense. So then you're not going to get the most like potential.
Yeah, it ruins a relationship, because like back in like 2018 with like my friend doing the 45K day, and then my client with the same French reality TV star, like same group of influencers, they did like 47K in a day, like selling watches.
Jeez.
And it was just
Watches.
but they could have ran multiple shoutouts, but they drop shipped the audience like 30-day shipping times. It ruined. And that's why like now even in France and some other countries are taking the same precautions, where like you have to have like inventory, you have to prove you have like good shipping times.
Damn. So the few people always ruin it for the rest.
Yeah,
It's
pretty
always
much.
like that.
Yeah, and it was just like when you're doing this, you just want to try to make everything as good as possible, even if it takes to lose a bit of margin. Like try to get the best shipping time and handling your customer service properly. Making basically a customer service like sequence where you're just letting people know.
Yeah, what's
like,
going on with their package.
Yeah, like how long it's actually going to take. It's just all about being upfront, transparent, like blocking objections, which is like a big thing when making like the influencer
True.
script. And the same thing with the customer service, but it's just all about like blocking what they're going to say and just being able to be in control of it, and like just being like on the same page with everybody.
Nice. So
if there is a problem,
do you usually make like an influencer script that you send out to influencers, like, and once you find like what works?
yeah, I mean like
continue to...
my scripts, like it could take me like 3 or 4 hours to make like a script, just because it's kind of like making, I've never made music, but I feel like it's like kind of like making music where it's just
yeah,
like
I feel that.
I'm just kind of freestyling it, and like because they have to try to think of like for what them to say, and like I have them add their own personality, but you do not, at least in my opinion, you don't want an influencer just doing their own thing with it, because at the end of the day, like I know what works.
Yeah, you know what works for the brand.
But they can obviously add their own personality to it, which I think is cool. But at the same time, like I always send them a script, and it's more of instruction. Like they can say specific words, but it's more so an instruction. Like when they bring it up, like how they show it, explaining it. And then showing the website. That's something I always do. And then like,
that's smart actually. So you have them show like literally the website.
Yeah, dude.
That's actually really clever. That probably builds so much trust for people.
Yeah, it's like, well, they show the product and then they say, okay, this is how it basically goes into accord. Like, here's the product. They explain like the value behind it, whatever selling points that there is, and then they show the website. They show which ones they recommend most to get. If you have upsells in the store, they can recommend the upsells.
Damn.
Yeah,
I guess that you're right, bro. When you put it that way, I definitely agree. Like it's probably best to just tell them what to do, and like obviously they can add their own flavor to it, but it's probably best for them to just follow your script.
Yeah, and it's just because it just works, and it's in best favor for them, because if the shout out works well, that's like the whole thing is like running multiple times and like actually saturating the audience properly without losing money. Because like what I found with like YouTubers, because like the biggest one that we've ran with was 10, like I was talking about, like 10K per video. The thing with that is just it's like it was really good in the first 2. You probably should have stopped at 3, but we had like a 4 video like contract type of thing. It was still good. Like I mean, so it was like 50 for like 95 or 96. It was like what tracked, but then that's not including like people buying stuff on the back end. So it's, like what I said, it was like
it's probably
more
a little
like
better than that. Over time.
And plus some people don't use codes and stuff like that. But kind of like learning from that is like when you're spending in high ad spend and there's a kind of a weird RNG going around with the views, where it's like one video could get like 200K views, another video gets like 50.
Yeah.
It kind of gets, that's kind of like the risk behind it. But when you're going to more of a general niche, where like say if they have really good YouTube following and they have really good Instagram following, you can really scale those audiences.
If they're like really consistent with their views. Yeah,
especially like with stories, feed, like being able to maximize it out. Like I said, like the whole goal is to get the brand to be the most known about it in the space, and being able to run that at, like being able to do that at a profit.
That's like the dream. I mean, honestly, it's crazy to talk about these things, because I know a lot of big like e-commerce brands that are like hundreds of millions. They hire all these agencies to be able to like grow at a profit, and like none of them grow at a profit almost. It's crazy. But I feel like all the like drop shipping kids like are so used to bootstrapping everything that you have to profit on the way up. I mean, that's where I see the future. Like all the things you've been mentioning, I think applied to a brand, like it's so much more powerful.
It's way better for brands and drop shippers, like I said, just because of the customer experience. Because like if you don't handle it properly with customer service, and especially if you have long shipping times, it's just not the way to go. And back then, no one really knew because we were all just starting out.
Yeah, right.
And but now just like learning, like it's best to, this will be most effective with a brand that has like very fast delivery times. You know, something that will never have any problems on the back end that you can scale seamlessly, because that's like the main issue is like not really finding profitable influencers, but it's like making sure every part of the process is like really good, so like you're able to run long term.
Yeah, that makes sense, bro.
Yeah.
So another question I have is like, for people, I know that a lot of you guys are just starting, like what would you, do you still think that theme pages, like whether it's on YouTube or just like Instagram, are viable? Like, is it a good way to run a promotion?
The main thing is just there isn't, like those meme pages, you know, if they have a good community build, like depending on the price, but at the end of the day, there isn't like a personal like touch to it. Like there's not like a face behind it where like people are connected to those people, you know. Yeah,
people trust the face for sure.
Yeah, it's like, it's just the face and like having a good community built. I mean, just when it comes to meme pages, that's kind of the reason why I stay away from them. I mean, but I have compilation pages, like they still work, but it's just like being able to grab the whole community and actually build good sales, like, you know, just personal brands, the best way to go. And like you could, you know, when it comes to like budgeting, I always offer flat rates because it's, you know, you're able to get the influencer to do what you want them to do.
Yeah.
You know, affiliates, it's hard to like lock them down and like actually doing something.
Right. I was actually gonna ask you about that too. Like, do you have any experience running more like affiliate sponsorships as opposed to just like a flat rate? You said you usually do a fixed rate.
In a way, because like with an influencer that, like, say if your product is like, say if it was like a fitness product and like the influencer's promoting it, but say if the, like on their main page, but the influencer say has like a group that people pay for, like a fitness training thing, and then they can, you know, you can make a discount for the product for their clients, specifically like a cheaper discount than what you're offering. And then that's like essentially what we did with an influencer, is like, you know, he had clients and then we offered the product for cheaper to his clients, and then I can actually look at the code. I think it's like over like 30. And it's just like from people just buying from, you know, from like it's like at 33.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah,
so
I
like,
mean, and that was with no ad spend. Yeah, that was
that's
like
crazy.
Yeah, with like no ad spend, but at the same time you're still paying him for the shoutouts, but at the same time he like tapped us in with like his actual client base. So that's kind of the way we did it. And there's some smaller influencers who are down to do affiliate things, but
without a fixed rate, like just an affiliate.
But like, it's just not really the best way for like consistency of everything.
For sure. And I honestly feel like for an influencer, especially like a personal brand one, it's probably more appealing to just get a flat rate than to do an affiliate offer. Like I feel like a lot of people don't really know what an affiliate offer usually entails, or how
some influencers are just kind of like too real for affiliates, because like some people, like I've seen the insides of like influencers emails, and like so many people reaching out asking for affiliates, and they just ignore like all of them. But then with like the way that I reach out with like putting a dollar amount and then like a sponsorship inquiry or like promotion inquiry, like I just put the dollar amount and like it piques the interest of people.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point. I mean, everybody responds to money.
And like but that's mainly why I do like flat rates opposed to affiliates, you know.
So I know that a lot of people are probably going to ask this. I feel like I get this question all the time, but how do you get people to respond to you? Because I know I've sent like tons of influencer emails sometimes and like 0 responses. It's like super dry. It's
like initially I put the dollar amount. The niche that we're scaling in, there isn't like a set price, so like a lot of people don't have set prices.
Right.
So I just like look at the views, and honestly I just eyeball it.
Yeah.
And just kind of put what I think is like worth for it. And the way that we do it is, you know, first doing the SO being like, say like $1,000 like promotion inquiry, you know, if it was YouTube I would just say sponsored. It's like more of a typical language.
Oh, true.
But it's all about the follow-up. Because a lot of people, they'll just email once and they don't get a response, and you're like, but you have to remember, these people are getting a bunch of emails, they have a busy life.
Right.
You know, and so you just have to follow up. Like an influencer that generated over 100K, you know, we had to follow up 10 times to get a response. And
10 times.
Yeah, like 10 times. And so basically I make like a variation of the follow-up. So there's the initial email, and then the follow-up sequence is, you know, just kind of a copycat of that, just like switching up the wording.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to like the actual follow-up, like if you guys don't know the specific specific wording to use. Like if you look in the description in my videos, I have like a messenger bot where you guys can click it, you'll get sent the initial influencer script that I use for like the actual promotion, but I'll be adding in like the follow-up sequence in the initial email. So if you guys want to get that, yeah, they'll just be in the description of one of my videos, the most recent one. So.
Dope. And that's actually like a good segue into just wrapping it up. So I really appreciate your time, bro. And you guys definitely make sure you go follow Dennis on Instagram, subscribe to his YouTube channel. I know you got a YouTube channel, so
be linked below.
Yeah, it'll be all linked in the description, and you guys should definitely make sure you check that out. There's definitely going to be a lot of value in there. And yeah, bro, I appreciate you coming out.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, peace out, everybody.
See you.